Do Crohn's disease symptoms keep coming back? Tremfya guselkumab may help. At 12 weeks, rapid symptom remission was achieved in most patients taking Tremfya, and some experienced visible improvement of their intestinal lining at 12 weeks and 1 year. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Explore what's possible and ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warmer brother, hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. Join me in segment number 2. We're going to be having Jovan Alford aboard. He does great work over at Total Sports Live, FTM Bets, and so much more. And we're going to be taking a look at some of the bullpen woes that these top teams in baseball have been having. Just the very open nature that we're finding in baseball right now, with these top teams really not being able to rise up here in the second half of the season. Then we're going to dive in on Friday's games. In the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at JD_41. Keep in mind, LRCM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but had a fun day of baseball on Thursday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Well, with my VSiN write-up pick, I went with the over with the Brewers and the Cardinals game, and for the Brewers, they entered in the day the top over team in the National League, but they left not as that because they and the Cardinals combined to strand 18 men on base, so we will look to get back to happy on Friday with a win, but 3-0. The St. Louis Cardinals able to get the job done over the Brewers. Brewers managed 3 hits in a game that Miles Michaelis started. Michaelis, 6 scoreless innings. Andrew Kittredge, Jojo Romero, Ryan Helsley, they all supply a scoreless inning for the Cardinals. They score 3 runs, but they leave 12 men on base. As for Freddie Peralta, he manages to get through 5 scoreless innings. It was Nick Mears that gave up all 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Jared Koenig, he had a scoreless inning of his own, and Bryce Wilson, 4 outside the bullpen, scoreless while giving up 3 hits. So just one of those days where you couldn't get a lot going there, but the Washington Nationals, they got things going on Patrick Corbin Day as the Colorado Rockies continue to be absolutely miserable on the road. 8-3 the final is. The Rockies are still pretty rock solid when Cal Quantrill takes a bump. They're now 11-8 in his last 19 starts. That's saying something for the Colorado Rockies as for Quantrill takes the L on this one, giving up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings. And then you had 3 runs given up without a single out of the bullpen from Lucas Gilbreth. Justin Lawrence fills a scoreless inning, and then Peter Lambert gives up 3 runs in 2 innings, including a home run as Juan Yepez gets his 4th home run of the season, and for Patrick Corbin, gives up nothing other than a solo home run over the course of his 6 innings of work, as it was Brenton Doyle who got his 21st home run of the season. Jacob Stallings a little bit later on against Yohan Adon gets his 8th home run of the season. Adon gives up 2 runs in an inning, and that's a nice already 6.75 ERA. Jacob Barnes and Robert Garcia, though, they're both able to supply a scoreless inning as they actually combine for 2 scoreless innings. As for the Colorado Rockies, they are now 18-48 on the road this far this season. That's a little bit less than savory. And for the Cincinnati Reds, things have been all sorts of up and down for them. And if you're looking right now, this might vary by the time this podcast comes out, you still are able to get Paul Skeens at even money to be able to win NL Rookie of the Year, and he had a nice showing against the Reds on Thursday. 7-0 the final. Skeens 9 strikeouts and 6 scoreless innings. You had from there Ben Heller be able to supply 2 scoreless innings, Hunter Stratton a scoreless inning, and then you had Yasmani Grandal go deep off of Jacob Junis for his 6th home run of the season. Nick Lodolo gives up 5 runs on 2 hits. Don't find that very often. 9 strikeouts, walked 3, that was less than savory, and then Junis gives up 2 runs in 2 1/3 innings, including a home run, as that home run that comes off the bat of one Mr. Grandal, who I mentioned before, is 6th, and Justin Wilson, he's able to fill a scoreless inning. So interesting there, and for the LA Angels, it's been an up and down season for them, as the Toronto Blue Jays have actually been a very good over team thus far this season. 69 overs, 56 unders, and 3 pushes, but this one stays under, and this one goes way of the Jays by a count of 5-3, as Brock and Roll Burke, he got the open in this one, gave up 3 runs in his inning of work. Mike Baumann gives up a home run, 2 runs in total over the course of an inning, as it was Ernie Clement who got his 10th home run season. And then the guy who you thought was going to be the starter in Griffin Canning gives 6 scoreless innings. I mean, what are the Angels doing with their opener system? But that said, you also had home run number 1 of the young career of Nico Gavidas. He was able to go deep in this one off of Tommy Nance. As for the Blue Jays, they went with an opener as well. This went much better, as Ryan Burr scoreless inning out of him. Ryan Yarbrough 5 scoreless innings. And then you had Brandon Little give a scoreless inning before Nance goes for the final 2 innings, gives up 3 runs, all of which were earned, including that home run. So, yay verily to the Angels, continue to be morons. And for the Baltimore Orioles, they've been your top over team in all baseball. 70 overs, 50 unders, and 9 pushes, but they did not do their part for the over in this one. 6-0, the Houston Astros find a way to get the job done at Spencer Arrighetti. 6 scoreless innings, Sean Dubin 2 scoreless innings, and Caleb Ferguson a scoreless inning of his own. As for Corbin Burns, he gets just 2 strikeouts, 6 runs, 5 of which were earned in 5 2/3 innings. From there, you had Gregory Soto and Nick Vespi, both landed scoreless inning, and Matt Baumann was able to come in for 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, but absolutely nothing doing there for the Baltimore Orioles, and not a lot doing here for the Philadelphia Phillies. They fall to the Atlanta Braves by a count of 3-2, as the Braves continue to be that top under team in all of baseball. 74 unders, 48 overs, and 5 pushes. As for the Phillies, Christopher Sanchez, not amazing, not terrible, just his 6th home run that he's allowed in north of 140 innings, so as he gives up 3 runs over the course of 6 innings, giving one up to Adam Duvall, 11th home run season, and Spencer Schwellenbach, 9 punch-outs, gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 2/3 innings. From there, Peters Johnson, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless, Rossio Iglesias, scoreless inning, and for the Phillies, Tanner Banks, Jose Ruiz, both be able to supply a scoreless inning of their own. For the San Diego Padres, this team has been up, down, all around this season, and for the New York Mets, they've been one of your top over teams on the road this year. Another Mets over on the road. They take down the San Diego Padres, this by a count of 8-3, as for the Mets, 31 overs, 24 unders, and 4 pushes when they've been on the road this season. And for the Metropolitans, no home runs, but they go 6 of 14 with men in scoring position, as Luis Severino, he gives up 5 hits, 4 walks, in 5 innings, but allows just 1 run, and then the bullpen put it on lockdown from there. Phil Matone, Reed Garrett, Danny Young, all landed scoreless inning. Oscar Berzoman gives up 2 runs in the 9th inning, but the team was up at that point by a count of 8-1, as for the San Diego Padres, Dylan Cease gives up 3 runs, 2 which were earned in 6 1/3 innings. This made the final score look much worse than what it was. Brian Hoying, 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and then Logan Gillespie, he gave up 5 runs in an inning of work, as if you had the under in this one, this game was 3-1 going into the 9th inning, and then that under completely faded into the abyss. And into the abyss went any hope of the Detroit Tigers being able to get a win, as the Chicago Cubs, they get a 10-2 win, as the Chicago Cubs have been very much an under team this far this season, but they did a nice job laying it on the Detroit Tigers all season long. As a matter of fact, 35 unders, 29 overs, and a push for the Cubs at Wrigley this season. But Tyler Holton, nice open, a scoreless inning, and then Kenta Maeda gives up 6 runs over the course of 5 innings, including a home run. Going deep for the Chicago Cubs, Miguel Amaya, 6th home run of the season. Joey Wentz from there was wincing in pain, giving up 4 runs in an inning before John Gunther lands a scoreless inning. Spencer Torkelson, welcome back to the big leagues. He gets his 5th home run season. That comes off of Justin Seal, who punched out 10, gave up 2 runs in 7 innings. From there, you had a scoreless inning out of Ethan Roberts and Jack Neely to be able to polish things off, and also being able to polish things off very easily, the New York Yankees, as they take down the Cleveland Guardians by a count of 6-0, and all of a sudden the Cleveland Guardians having their issues, as well as for Cleveland, absolutely nothing doing at the plate. Gavin Williams gives up 3 runs in 4 1/3 innings, including a home run. As for the Yankees, Aaron Judge now has 48 home runs this season, and for the Yankees, they have been one of your best over teams in all of baseball as well. They did not get any help from the Cleveland Guardians for this over, as they're now at 71 overs, 53 unders, and 4 pushes for the Yankees, but also Giancarlo Stanton go deep off of Nick Sandlin for his 21st home run of the season. Sandlin gives up that home run, got 2 outs, gave up 2 runs, as you had 3 innings filled by Connor Gillespie. He gave up 1 run along the way, and for the New York Yankees, Garrett Cole was on point as he goes 6 scoreless innings, did walk 5, but only gives up 1 at Tim Hill, Luke Weaver, they combined for 2 scoreless innings, and Michael Tonkin was able to line a scoreless inning as well. And then for the Rays versus A's series, a combined 14 runs in 4 games as they play another under, 3-1. The A's are able to get the job done in this one as Jeffrey Springs gives up 3 runs in 3 1/3 innings before the Rays get 4 2/3 innings scoreless out of the bullpen. Colin Boucher, Joel Kuno, Richard Lovelady, all in a scoreless inning. Kevin Kelly, 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and for Oakland, Oswaldo Bido delivered a very solid start. 6 strikeouts, 1 run allowed in 5 innings before you had Michael Otons, Tyler Ferguson, Mason Miller, all give a scoreless inning. Rand Holman, TJ McFarland, they piecemeal together a scoreless inning of their own. And if you're looking at this great game of baseball, starting to see the overs taper off just a little bit. Over the last 30 days, you're so profitable playing overs, as for the last 30 days, we have seen the money line favorites go at 57.4%, 224 and 166 on the money line, with the over being at 55.5%, 209 overs to 168 unders. If you look at the last 7 days in Major League Baseball, though, been a little bit of an under effect here, as for the under, it is hitting at 57%, 49 unders to 37 overs. If you're looking specifically at what we got on Thursday, you had 5 unders, 3 overs, and a push. Well, favorites, they went 6-3 on the money line, and overall for the season, favorites are hitting at 57.2%, 1,083 and 812 on the money line. Meanwhile, the over hitting at 50.5% for the season, 929 and 909, with the 929 being to the over. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we all got on Thursday. Now let's take a look at Friday's games and the scuffles of some of these top teams in their bullpens. We're going to do so next with Jovan Alford, who does great work over at FDN Network right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Myself, Greg Peterson, now about the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It is always a pleasure to be joined by this man, as Jovan Alford. He does such an amazing job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. He is over there at Turtle Sports Live, holding it down, taking a look at all that we're getting in the Philly sports landscape. On top of that, he's doing a great job with his baseball bets, his football bets, and so much more over at FDN Bets. And he does some great written work over at Fansided as well. You're able to check him out on the Twitter/X at Jovan10. That is Jovan, the number 10 altogether. And Jovan, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Hey, always glad to be on talking baseball with you, Greg. It's a great time. If you're a baseball fan, this is the perfect time to really lock in, because like you said, the last time we were on, we were talking about the playoff races, and they're only heating up in both the AL and the NL. So looking forward to talking everything on the diamond.
Oh, it is a lot of fun what we are getting, because we've got so many close playoff races right now. The LA Dodgers about a game to a game and a half clear in terms of best record in the big leagues, depending upon what happens after this podcast uploads. But I mean, what have you made out of these playoff races where it feels like the Milwaukee Brewers have separated in the NL Central, the Phillies are taking command in the NL East, but everything else, including those wild card spots, feel very up for grabs?
Definitely everything, like you said, the teams that are kind of doing their thing, the Phillies, the Yankees, to an extent, the Astros have kind of figured themselves out in a rather say disappointing AL West this season. But for me, I think what's been more surprising has been that AL Central race, because usually at this point in time of the year, especially for the last couple of years, it's kind of been like a huge separation between first place and second place, where the division is already kind of locked up. But this year, you know, the Guardians have been playing outstanding baseball offensively. Their pitching staff has been really good, but the Twins and the Royals are both nipping, you know, at their heels. The Twins are basically, you could say, a perennial playoff team that have the pitching, and offensively, Byron Buxton was playing so well to start this month before he got hurt. And then the Royals, I think that's been everybody's surprise team. They've been able to get it done with their offense, with their pitching rotation that they kind of retooled this offseason, going to get a Seth Lugo, going to get a Michael Wacha, pair with the ace and Cole Reagans at the top of the pitching rotation. It's made this AL Central race one of the more compelling races down the stretch that I think we're all going to be watching out for, because whoever doesn't win that division is probably going to be competing with the Orioles for one of those, the Orioles and the Red Sox for one of those last couple spots in the AL playoff race.
And what do you make right now of the Baltimore Orioles, a squad that just sent Trevor Rogers down to the AAA level, Zach Eflin, the only of their trade deadline acquisitions that is really working out at this point from a pitching perspective. He just went on the injury list too. And you've got Corbin Burns, who went on the bump on Thursday, and then you got Dean Kramer and not much else.
Yeah, the Orioles pitching staff has not been good, to say the least. And then I think tomorrow they have Cade Povich scheduled to go to, which isn't great either. Have much hype that he had in spring training, especially during those games that they were going against other top prospects. He haven't lived up to the hype. I think what's been the most concerning thing about this Orioles squad is that offensively they've kind of fell back down to earth, right? Gunnar Henderson for a long stretch of period of time this month wasn't hitting home runs, Rushman a little banged up. They get Eloy Jimenez, but Eloy's been what Eloy has been even this season with the White Sox. But I will say, if you're an Orioles fan, I think that you have to feel a little bit better from what you are seeing from Jackson Holiday, even though the average isn't spectacular at 181, right? But it's better than what we saw from early in the season, and you just got to hope that your pitching kind of comes around, that the offense comes around. Because I think somebody pointed it out on Twitter. I think it was John Bowman pointed out on Twitter about how the Orioles just had the worst trade deadline ever.
Oh, yes, he did. And he's joined this podcast before. We like John.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, right? Trevor Rogers option. They get Gregory Soto from the Phillies. A 15.43 ERA, just horrible. Sir Anthony Dominguez, solid ERA, but he's blown some opportunities. Craig Kimbrel, another former Philly. It seems like all the former Phillies end up in Baltimore. He's been up and down this season. They're treading water right now. So you just got to hope with the pitching woes outside of, like you said, Corbin Burns, Zach Eflin, hopefully Grayson Rodriguez should be back, hopefully, very soon. You hope that's the case. You just hope that offensively they can turn it around, because when you have your pitching kind of up and down, especially your bullpen too being inconsistent, you need your offense. And they got guys in that offense that can hit, right? When Gunner's on, he can hit, right? When Colton Cowser, who's projected in many books to be the favorite for AL Rookie of the Year, when he's on, he's good, right? When Rushman is good, he's good. Santander is about to hit 40 home runs this season. So they just got to get that offense rolling. Brandon Hyde and that team, they just got to get that offense rolling. Get an offense rolling, they'll give themselves a chance. But it starts there, because right now the pitching is kind of not giving them what they need.
And in the ultimate irony for their game against the Astros tomorrow, I was thinking that Hunter Brown was supposed to get the start, but as we are doing this podcast, it's to be determined for the Houston Astros. So we've got a lot of teams going through it right now. As we've got our good friend Jovan Alford of FTMS joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And my goodness, it's just wild and crazy what we're seeing in baseball right now. And just what do you make out of the bad bullpen pitching that we're seeing out of a lot of the top teams as well? Because I take a look at these bullpen ERAs since July 1st, and it's a lot of unexpected teams that are towards the top. I think a lot of people aren't necessarily overly surprised that the Rays have come into their own with their bullpen pitching, but right now the Chicago Cubs, the LA Angels, and the Arizona Diamondbacks, along with the Detroit Tigers, are all in the top 7 in terms of bullpen pitching since July 1st. Meanwhile, in the bottom 10, you've got the likes of the Philadelphia Phillies, the Boston Red Sox, the Orioles we were mentioning before, the Dodgers. They're all bottom 8 teams in bullpen ERA over the last month and a half to 2 months, and it just feels like these top teams are all failing in the bullpen.
As we've seen, as you know, right, Greg, that's make or break in the postseason, right? Your pitching has to be on, down the stretch of the playoffs and into the playoffs. And the fact that all these teams, their bullpens are going south at the wrong time, that's not good, because some of these teams made acquisitions at the deadline to fix their bullpen and it haven't worked. A team like the Phillies, they added Carlos Estevez from the Angels. They added Tanner Banks from the White Sox, moved out, obviously, Dominguez and Soto. You'd think there would be some just remedies and just like, all right, we got our closer and Banks is a good lefty, but everybody else is kind of falling apart, which has been one of the more puzzling things. Hoffman has struggled. Strom has struggled to a certain extent. Alvarado's struggling for most part of this season. So it's been telling. It kind of makes me wonder, with all these contending teams, like you said, in the bottom of these bullpens, like, did anybody want to prioritize getting bullpen help at the deadline? Because I understand, right, for the Dodgers, right, great team, for example, right, you go out and get a Jack Flaherty. Cool, right? I understand, because the pitching rotation is in trouble. And obviously with Glass now on the injured list, you need people in the rotation to kind of get you to that bullpen. But the bullpen can win you and lose you games, and you would think they would go out and get, some bullpen help. And a lot of these teams, right? We saw Tanner Scott go for a haul for the Padres, and it looked like it's kind of benefited them so far. So it's kind of telling that teams, hey, when the deadline rolls around, you're in that playoff push, you got to kind of prioritize the bullpen. I know everybody wants the big bats and the power pitching and the solid starters, but finding good bullpen pieces could make or break your season. And for teams like the Royals, for example, they've kind of been on the upswing because of what they did at the deadline and because what they're getting from their bullpen.
Yep, absolutely. And these bullpens, they just have been so inconsistent, and it's just still so surprising to see the Cubs as that number one team in terms of bullpen pitching since the beginning of the month of July. And now they throw out their Kyle Hendricks against the Miami Marlins as a minus 120 to a minus 125 favorite against Max Meyer. And I think it is intriguing to look at the Cubs because depending upon what happens in terms of the Mets versus Padres game, they'll either be 4.5 or 5.5 games out of that final wild card position. But it's just really hard to trust in Kyle Hendricks, and seeing totals, especially these totals at an 8. I'm seeing some 8.5s out there as well. This just feels like a low total with the way that Hendricks is pitching.
Yeah, Kyle Hendricks has not been good. I mean, anytime you have a 3-10 record and an ERA north of 6, you're kind of trying to figure out what is going on with him. Now, granted, at home, he has a 5.32 ERA, which is nothing special. But considering what it is away from Wrigley, where it's close to 7, and to his credit, he's pitched much better this month, right? So if you're want to think about backing the Cubs here, can lean on the fact that, hey, he's pitched well in August, 2.45 ERA, batters are only hitting 238, which is a complete difference than what they were doing last month, where they were hitting 270 off them. His last 2 starts this month, really well, 5 innings against the Blue Jays in his last start, only gave up 5 hits, 1 earned run, which was the home run. Against the Twins, 6 innings, 2 earned, 1 home run allowed. He's got to kind of limit those home runs because he's given up a home run at least in 5 straight starts, so he's got to do that. But if he can give you a solid 5-6 innings, right, where he's not getting bat around, which could be the case of the Marlins offense, you don't know. You just got to stay away from Jake Burger and you'll be all right. If he could kind of maneuver around Jake Burger, maybe there's an opportunity here to take that, like you said, to take the Cubs or take the Cubs full for the full game, or even maybe a Cubs F5 might be a nice play too.
With the Chicago Cubs, it's been just an interesting second half of the season for them. Hard to trust in Hendricks, but does feel like the offense is starting to come around. They were able to put up a bunch of runs against the Detroit Tigers, and coupled with that, the Miami Marlins all of a sudden have Jake Burger looking like Barry Bonds 2.0. So it's been a lot of fun as well. And I take a look at this game, and this should be a fun one as well. The Padres and the Mets. The Mets have been an up and down team all season long, and they've got Paul Blackburn going up against Joe Musgrove, and the Padres about a minus 130 or so favor. What do you make out of this game with Joe Musgrove coming back and looking relatively solid in these last 2 starts? But certainly he's been banged up all season long. But as we know, this Padres team has been white hot here in the second half of the season.
Yeah, if you're the Padres, you kind of are liking your opportunity going up against a guy like Paul Blackburn. Granted, he's been rough around the edges this season, but he's pitched way better this month, specifically since coming over from Oakland. He's going at least 6 innings in 3 out of his last 4 starts. Now, granted, right? Look at the teams that Paul Blackburn has faced. The Marlins, the Athletics, the Rockies, and the Angels. Not teams that are exactly world beaters offensively, even though we know Oakland, they do have the tendency to go off here and there. So if you're the Padres, you got to like your chances that, granted, he pitched well, but against lower tier offenses outside of Oakland, putting up 6 earned runs. You just got to hope, if the Padres, got to get your guys on bases right. You got to get Machado, continue to keep him rolling. The rookie Jackson Merrill has just been outstanding. I don't know how much more we could say about the kid. He's lived up to everything promised this season, from starting his major league debut at the beginning of the season to hitting 291 this season and hitting 323 this month. He's just been a walk-in total base prop monster. If the Padres can kind of get the Blackburn early and possibly get to that Mets bullpen, it should provide some cover from Musgrove, because like you said, he's been banged up this season. But if you can kind of give him some leverage to kind of get him through, because he only went 4 1/3 in both of his starts this month. If you can kind of get him to that 5th, 6th inning, maybe you can give yourself a chance, because you got the bullpen. So if you can make it a bullpen game, you might got a chance, but you got to try to get the Blackburn early and see if what he's done this month matches against your offense.
Absolutely. And man, this is going to be such a fun slate that we've got for Friday, as we've got every single team in baseball that is going to be going at it. Anything else that you're taking a look at in particular for this Friday, whether that be a player prop or two, whether that be a team or a pitcher that you're looking to back or fade? Anything that's really standing out to you?
For me, standing out for me, I'm very interested to do some more deeper trends on Francisco Lindor. He's been just outstanding this month. He's been probably one of my favorite player props, to hit and target these last couple of weeks. At the plate, he's just unstoppable. If he's not getting a couple hits in the game, he's hitting a home run. If you're looking for a guy to target just in general for this week and just for this weekend series, maybe look at Francisco Lindor over 1.5 total bases and maybe, 2 hits prop, which has been priced around plus 190, plus 200. Depending on the book. So definitely looking to see what his odds will be for that game against Musgrove. And if Hunter Brown starts, I'm leaning towards the Astros in that game, specifically see what Hunter Brown's outs prop is, because granted, he hasn't pitched well on the road this season with a 4.23 ERA, and teams are hitting 284 against him. This month, he's been stellar, 1.96 ERA and a 1.94 opponent's batting average in 3 starts this month. If he starts, I want to see what that outs prop is, because he's been hitting 6 innings or more in most of his starts recently between last month and this month. So I want to see what his outs prop is looking like, and maybe could be an opportunity maybe for an Astros F5, because I don't trust Cade Povich. I don't think most baseball bettors trust Cade Povich at this point.
Yeah, it's hard to have a lot of faith in Cade Povich at this point, and for the Houston Astros, we shall see who they're going to be throwing out there as well. Right now, we're seeing an opening total of 9, and we could very well see a little bit of a slugfest out there. And we always know that we're going to be able to get a show from you, Jovan, as you do such great work taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. You're on so many different platforms doing great work, so let the good people at home know it's on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, Greg, I always appreciate you having me on, talking some baseball. It's always fun, to break down the game and, discuss all the inner workings. But yeah, people can follow me on Twitter at Jovan10 for baseball props. College football, we got that coming up this weekend. Excited about that. College football plays. Any plays pretty much prop-wise or even size and totals for college football, you could follow me there at Jovan10. Like you said, fan-sided as well, but also, like you mentioned, TotalSportsLive.com and the Total Sports Live podcast.
Absolutely, and Jovan doing such great work, taking a look at baseball, getting set for the football season, and so much more. So, big thanks to Jovan for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming in next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Jovan Alford. He does such a great job over at Total Sports Live, does an amazing job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love over at FTN Network, FTN Bets, and so much more. And he always makes us just a little bit smarter when he joins this podcast. So big thanks to Jovan for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at Jaden_D1. We're going to be going in the Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So let's get things started with 901, 902 on the betting board. The Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we are on a Cincinnati. They're on to the road face-off against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Bailey Falter hopes to not live up to his name for the Buccos, and Andrew Abbott is on the bump for the Reds. The Reds are an underdog of between plus 102 to plus 105, minus 115 to minus 122. That number on Pittsburgh, 8.5 is the total. The over and the under, anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. And with the Pittsburgh Pirates, I set them as the slightest of slight favorites here at a minus 108, as long as we can get a plus 108 or higher. And I'm thinking that when we get up the Las Vegas numbers with more of the dime line, we should be able to get there. As doing this on early East Coast openers, we'll be looking at the Reds on the money line. For both of these pitchers, they're both giving up quite a bit of contact, and both of these guys I think are going to be giving up runs, so I'm also going to be looking at the over. I set my total at an 8.9, as You got a guy in Bailey Falter who does a nice job not giving out a lot of walks, 2.6 walks per 9 innings, but 6.3 punch-outs per 9 innings, 4.02 ERA, 4.21 fielding dependent. He's kept the ball in the yard, giving up 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, but he's just going to give up so much contact in general. Had 8 strikeouts in his last start against the Seattle Mariners. The Mariners will swing if you throw a bowling ball down the middle while rolling it in the dirt, though, so I take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. And then on the flip side for Andrew Abbott, this guy is very lucky that he doesn't have an ERA that is approaching 5, as he's got a 5.04 fielding dependent, 3.72 ERA, 7.5 strikeouts, 3.5 walks per 9 innings, giving up 1.6 bombs per 9 innings, and actually leads the National League in home runs allowed just overall, but he gets to go up against the Pittsburgh Pirates team that's been in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of home run power supplied. You do have a quartet of guys in Oneil Cruz, Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, and Brian De La Cruz, who have all been able to give you at least 16 home runs this season, and in the case of Reynolds, he's up to about a 350 or so in terms of on base, but the guys at the bottom of the fold for this team, Yasmani Grandal, Michael A. Taylor, J1 Bay, these are guys hitting at 215 or lower. Love what Joey Bart is providing. 12 home runs at about 180 or so at bats, 350 on base. He's been pretty rock solid, but Brian Hayes, Connor Joe, you just expected a little bit more out of some of these guys. And then for the Cincinnati Reds, a bottom 8 team in the big leagues in terms of their overall batting average, with Ellie De La Cruz having to really carry the mail for this team. 22 home runs. He's been able to supply the team with a 345 on base. You do have Jameer Candelario, Spencer Sear, both being able to give you at least 19 home runs apiece, but both of these guys hitting at 235 or lower. We'll say Santiago Espinal, in a relatively small sample size here in the second half of the season, has really been able to do a nice job of supplying some just overall on base. He's been able to hit north of 350 ever since the All-Star break, so a little bit of credit where it is due there. But where this team is going to really look to be able to win this game is with their bullpen. For the Cincinnati Reds, they are a top 10 team in terms of bullpen ERA. Buck Farmer, along with Sam Mola, have been able to give you a sub-3.5 ERA. You've been able to get some good innings recently out of Alexis Diaz, so you continue to have some rough outings from Fernando Cruz, but Tony Santina has come off the injury list, provided sub-150 ERA, and David Bernhardt just continues to provide north of a 5 ERA. He has been miserable all season long. Pirates in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Dennis Santana is supplying north of a 4.5 ERA. Aroldis Chapman has been able to kick it into gear, and get Jalen Beeks has been solid as well, but do take a look at this spot. As long as I can get a plus 108 or higher on the Reds, going to be looking at that money line to go along with an 8.5 over. 903, 904 on the betting board. The Chicago Cubs are on the road facing off against the Miami Marlins. Max Meyer is on the bump for the Fish. The Professor Kyle Hendricks goes for the Cubs, and the Cubs do find themselves between minus 120 to minus 125 favorites. Plus 105 to plus 110 is that number on Miami. 8 to 8.5 is the total on the 8. Over is minus 120, the under's even on the 8.5. Under is minus 120, and the over is even. And with the Chicago Cubs, I did set them as a favorite of minus 104, being able to get plus 105 or higher, like you're seeing right now. Going to be one to firing on the Marlins. This is just straight up a fade of Kyle Hendricks. Kyle Hendricks has been absolutely miserable all season long, posting up an ERA that is well north of a 5.5. As a matter of fact, 6.35 ERA, feeling a pen of 5.27, giving up 1.8 home runs per 9 innings. Has been quite a bit better recently. 3 earned runs or fewer allowed in 4 out of his last 5 starts, so a little bit of credit where it is due, but he's just not getting any whiffs whatsoever. The ball's in play constantly against him. On the road, the ERA balloons up to a 7.28, and on the road he has given up north of 2 home runs per 9 innings. Not as if Max Meyer is necessarily the Mona Lisa Vito of pitching himself. He's posting up a 5.58 ERA with a fielding independent of a 5.54, giving up 2 home runs while getting 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. But with Max Meyer, it does feel like at the very least there's a little bit more upside there, and I love the way that Jake Berger is applying for this Miami Marlins team entering into yesterday. 13 home runs in his last 24 games. This guy is on an absolute tear right now. You don't have much else around him, as you do have Jesus Sanchez, who's been able to supply 15 home runs. He's giving you about a 240 average. Then you've got sort of a poo-poo platter of different guys that are hitting in that neighborhood of, we're going to call it about a 227 to about a 200. You've got Vidal Brujan, Nick Flash Gordon, Nick Fortes, guys like this that you could use a little bit more from. Kyle Sowers has been not very useful for this team, but Xavier Edwards at the top is providing a 425 on base, like the upside of the young guy in Connor Norby, who's now getting some at-bats. as well. Now, for the Miami Marlins, this bullpen has went straight down the toilet bowl. They trade away A.J. Puck. They trade away so many of these guys that were rock solid, like a J.T. Chargois. And now they're left with these guys like a Kent Emanuel, John McMillan, guys like this that are not giving you good innings. Jesus Sunoco. That's not a place where you want to be. Miami Marlins have been really fading in terms of their bullpen since the beginning of the month of July. Well, since the beginning of the month of July, the Cubs have an ERA that's a full point better than any other in the National League. Actually, more than a point better than any other in the National League, as they've picked up a few guys in Ori Lopez, Taysom Miller that have a sub 130 ERA in a Cubs uniform. Nate Pearson that's coming over from the Blue Jays that took sub 250 ERA. Porter Hoge in a long roll has nearly a 2 ERA. Drew Smiley has been rock solid. So, like what I'm seeing there, the biggest thing for the Cubs is that they have to do a better job of hitting with men in scoring position, as 1 through 6 on this team has been pretty rock solid, as you've got so many guys that do a nice job being able to find a way on. Isaac Paredes, Ian Happ, C.A. Suzuki, Michael Busch. All these guys have been able to give you at least 16 home runs. They're all providing at least a 330 on base. Cody Bellinger, 13 bombs, 332 on base. But then you got at the bottom of the lineup, Miguel Maya, Pete Crow Armstrong, Dansby Swanson. These guys hitting at 230 or lower with 10 home runs or fewer. That has been very costly, as it's a little bit of a top-heavy lineup. But certainly do think that you should be able to get some runs off of both of these starters. So I'm in on the over. I set my total at an 8.7 and a plus 105 or higher. Looking at the Marlins on the money line, 905 and 906 on the betting board. The Washington Nationals are on the road. They're facing off against the Atlanta Braves, as we do know that it is going to be Mackenzie Gore who's going to be on the bump for Washington. It was looking like Chris Sale before for the Atlanta Braves. This is a game that is presently off the board, though. If you do indeed get Chris Sale, this is a number that we saw posted with Chris Sale earlier at a minus 240 to a minus 245 on the Braves, plus $2 to a plus 214 on Washington, with a total of 7.5, with the over at a minus 120 and the under at even. If you do indeed get Chris Sale, set him as a minus 228 favorite on the money line for the Braves. The run line price was never posted. As long as you'd be able to get a minus 118 or better, I'd be looking at the Braves. I'm thinking it's probably going to be at least a 60-cent difference if you get someone other than Chris Sale, because who else would you be having start in this game? Would you have someone like Bryce Elder be able to start? I know that they've got like an AJ Smith-Schwaber if he's healthy. Like, it would be a precipitous drop-off. And if you go with someone like a Grant Holmes, probably like a 50-cent drop-off, as Grant Holmes, he's been utilized out of the bullpen a little bit over the last few days, but we've seen him get a few starts. But if you get Chris Sale, it's all sorts of dominance. And if it is Chris Sale, I would actually look at that 7.5 under, as I do think that there's quite a bit of upside here with Mackenzie Gore. I feel like a broken record saying it all season long, but I just don't know if there's been a pitcher that's more snake bit this season than Mackenzie Gore. For Mackenzie Gore, the batting average on balls in play for opponents is a 371. Like, I mean, you want to talk about the odds of getting struck by lightning twice. That's essentially what Mackenzie Gore has had this year. He has pitched much better than the 7-11 record with a 4.66 ERA would indicate. He needs to lay off the walks. He leads the National League starters with 54 walks in total. He's given up 3.9 walks per 9 innings, but he's getting nearly 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's allowing less than a home run per 9 innings. So, I mean, he's been able to do his part, and now they would be going up against an Atlanta Braves team that, let's call it what it is. This is all sorts of a banged-up lineup. You're without so many of these guys like Ronald Acuna Jr., you're without Ozzie Albies. Now you've got Austin Riley on the injured list, so you're looking at Michael Harris, who's been able to move the line at the top of the lineup. Marcell Ozuna continues to be amazing, 375 on base, 37 home runs going into last night, but you then have so many guys hitting in that pocket of about a 220 to a 230. Ramon Laureano, Matt Olson. You've got Sean Murphy, Orlando Arcia, and then Adam Duvall is hitting a good hearty .177 with a home run every 30 at-bats. That's just absolutely awful. Whit Merrifield is useless, and on the flip side, for the Washington Nationals, this team is dead last in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat and a per-game basis, but do have a pair of guys in C.J. Abrams, Luis Garcia, combining for 33 home runs. Garcia is hitting darn near 300. Abrams, more around a 245 between the two of them. You've gotten 45 stolen bases, and that's been the forte of this Washington Nationals team, a top-4 team in the big leagues in terms of stolen bases per game when they are on the road. Jacob Young, darn near 30 stolen bases, not giving you a lot of power, but he's hitting about a 250, and you've been able to have the young guy, and James Wood, be able to do a nice job finding a way on. 380 on base for the Nationals. The bullpen is certainly going down the toilet bowl. They have to trade away quite a few guys at the deadline, like a Hunter Harvey, like a Dylan Floro. Now you've got Derek Law on the injured list, so you're looking at the likes of Jose Ferrar, Yohan Adon, Tanner Rainey posting up north of 5 ERAs in this bullpen, though Eduardo Salazar has been rock solid. And then for the Atlanta Braves, even if this is some sort of a bullpen game, you still have a rock solid bullpen. Joey Jimenez, obviously the closer, and Rossio Iglesias, Dylan Lee, guys like this have been able to supply a sub-3 ERA, even with AJ Minter currently being out of the fold. They've been able to get a lot of good pitching. Jesse Chavez is able to fill multiple innings, so if you do get Chris Sale out there on the bump, that 7.5, I would be willing to take it under, and at a minus 115 or better, would be willing to lay the run line of the Braves. If it's not Chris Sale, I'd probably be able to take the Nationals at about a plus 160, plus 165 or so. If it's Brian Holmes, probably closer to about plus 175 or so I would need for the Nationals. And then I'd be kicking up this total by at minimum a half a run if it is indeed like a bullpen game and or Bryce Elder, probably a full run from there. 907, 908 on the betting board. The New York Mets on the road against the San Diego Padres, and what is going to be the VSiN write-up pick as Joe Musgrove is on the bump for the Padres. Paul Blackburn walks the plank for the Mets, and the Mets do find themselves as an underdog, anywhere between plus 114 to a plus 120, anywhere between minus 128 to a minus 135. That number on the pods. Total on this game is 8. The under is between minus 115 to a minus 125. The under is between minus 105 to a plus 105. My write-up is going to be on the Padres money line. Wrote this up at a minus 125. If you're seeing closer to about a minus 130, still more than enough runway on this one, as I mean my money line price of minus 159. So very much a nice cushion there. As for Joe Musgrove, he's made 2 starts since coming off the injured list, and he's not lending the world's greatest amount of length. He's went 4 1/3 innings in both of them, but he looked pretty solid in both of those starts. Gave up a combined 1 run. Granted, it was against the Pirates and the Colorado Rockies, but 3 walks in 8 2/3 innings, giving up no home runs, 7 strikeouts in that time span. It looks like he's getting back to being his normal self, and for Paul Blackburn, he's looked relatively solid thus far in a Mets uniform. He's made 4 starts. He's given up 2 runs or fewer in 3 of those starts, but dating up back to his time in Oakland, has had his issues on the road all season long. He has made 7 road starts with a 5.59 ERA, given up 8 bombs at 37 innings, and now it's a face-off against the San Diego Padres team that is number 1 in the big leagues in terms of batting average against righties. In terms of OPS against righties, they are number 3 in the National League, just behind the Diamondbacks and the LA Dodgers, as you just have a nice boom squad out there. Jackson Merrill, Manny Machado, Jurickson Profar, all between 18 and 20 home runs, all hitting at least a 268. On top of that, you got Profiles giving you about a 385 on base. You've had a great production out of Luis Arias at the top of the fold, hitting above a 300. Jake Cronenworth is finding a way to give you about a 325 on base. Kyle Higashioka is supplying a home run every about 12 to 12.5 or so at bat. So you've got a very fearsome Padres lineup that now backs up Joe Musgrove with a very rock-solid bullpen as well. For the San Diego Padres, they picked up at the trade deadline Tanner Scott, Jason Adam from the great state of Florida, coupled with Brian Hoying. And if you take a look at the San Diego Padres, ever since July 30th, so right around the wrap-up time for the trade deadline, they have been one of the best bullpens in the big leagues in this time span, and they've got a full point better in terms of their bullpen ERA in this time. As for the San Diego Padres since July 30th, 2.46 bullpen ERA. That is number 2 in terms of overall ERAs in that time span, number 1 in the National League, while the Mets 3.57 ERA in this time span, as they've been dealing with a few guys like John Reed Foley, Daniel Nunez being out of the lineup in terms of that bullpen. They did pick up a few guys at the trade deadline. They've been dealing with Reed Garrett. Not necessarily giving you a ton this year, but you've had some good innings out of Danny Young. Adam Ottavino has been absolutely useless in this bullpen, but if you get the ball to Edwin Diaz, he's been able to do a pretty rock-solid job. And for the New York Mets, this has been a team that's been able to supply about 5 runs per game when they have been on the road, as you've got Brandon Nimmo is giving you north of a 370 on base when he's on the road this season. You've had Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor be able to combine for 52 home runs, both between about a 330 to a 340 on base. But for the San Diego Padres, they're averaging nearly 5.6 runs per game post All-Star break, more like 4.7 for the New York Mets, having the leg up in terms of the bullpen. I do like the San Diego Padres in this spot. My write-up is going to be on the pods on the money line, and I do think that you're going to be able to get some run scoring in this game as well. I saw my total at 8.7, so looking at the over, and my write-up, that is on the Padres money line. 909, 910 on the betting board. It is the Houston Astros. They hit the road. They're facing off against the Baltimore Orioles. Cade Bovich is on the bump for Baltimore, and Hunter Brown is on the bump for Houston. Houston is finding themselves as a slight favorite, anywhere between minus 110 to a minus 120, anywhere between minus 102 to a plus 104. That number on Baltimore. 9 is the total. The under is between minus 105 to a minus 115, and same goes for the over. And this is a circumstance where I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Houston Astros for Hunter Brown. This guy has been all sorts of nasty for the team, and I do think that he's going to be able to keep it running in this one. I did set the Houston Astros at a minus 117, so I'm willing to go up to a minus 116. Brown had a tumultuous start to the season, but has now given up 2 earned runs or fewer in 4 out of his last 5 starts. For Brown, the swing and miss stuff, it is certainly there. Darn near 10 strikeouts at 3.3 walks per 9 innings, 3.82 ERA with a fielding independent that's even better than that at a 3.68. Last year, he actually had a much better ERA when he was on the road rather than at home. We've seen a little bit of a split reversal this season, 3.42 home ERA compared to a 4.23 ERA on the road. But what I really like about Hunter Brown in this ordeal is that he's given up 5 home runs in 66 innings on the road this season at Camden Yards, where they extended out that fence a few seasons ago. That should play very much to his advantage, going up against an Orioles team that has been at the top of the big league level in terms of their home run power. Anthony Santander, coupled with Gunnar Henderson, a combined 70 home runs this season. For Henderson, he was in that funk where he wasn't able to get a home run to save his life. Now he's been able to get 3 home runs in the last 8 days, so he's been able to get things rocking and rolling there. 375 on base. They're still dealing with that injury to Jordan Westberg, but Ellie Rushman, Ryan Mountcastle, these guys in between about a 262, 265 with a combined 31 home runs is nice. Colin Cowser has really been able to take over in terms of that AL Rookie of the Year race because he's been able to hit about a 300 over the last 30 days. Last 30 days has been able to fly 5 home runs, so like what I'm seeing there. And even someone like Ramon Urias is giving you good at-bats right now, 320 or so in terms of his on-base with functional power. When you need someone like a Jackson Holliday to step up, he's been able to do so recently since he got recalled from the minor league level. He's been hitting for about a 240 with 5 home runs. Not amazing, but looking a whole lot better with a lot of upside. And for the Astros, their slugging percentage does drop when they are on the road, but you've got Yordan Alvarez, who's been able to supply the team with nearly a 400 on base, 25 home runs this season. Jose Altuve with about 2 home runs in the last 50 days. You need a little bit more power, but his on base and his batting average remains a constant, 350 on base, 300 batting average. Yenier Diaz has been able to hit for north of 300, had a pair of home runs in that series against Boston Red Sox. Jeremy Pena is reaching base with about a 275 average, and Victor Carantini, under the radar, he has done a nice job of being able to move the line for this team as well. He, over the last 3 days, hitting for about a 350, so do like what I'm seeing there. And for the Astros, they do have a massive leg up in terms of this bullpen. You've got the Bryans, Brian King, Brian Abreu, Seth Martinez, Taylor Scott, all supplying a sub-3.3 ERA. Caleb Ferguson is someone that you do want to avoid, but Josh Hader looks like the Josh Hader of old. And for the Baltimore Orioles since July 1st, this bullpen currently in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of their ERA, as you've seen Craig Kimbrell go straight down the toilet bowl. Sir Anthony Dominguez has been relatively okay, but he's blown a few saves since getting over there. Gregory Soto has been about as useful as a poopy flavored lollipop. Bert Smith is supplying about a 4.75 ERA. And then for Cade Povich, he has been significantly better when he has been at home rather than on the road. 3.58 home ERA, 12.27 ERA on the road. And at home, he's giving up a little bit over a home run per 9 innings. I actually think that he's going to be able to give you a functional start, and I do think that you're just seeing Mr. Hunter Brown come into his own. So this is a circumstance where at a minus 116 or less, and right now seeing a lot of in that pocket about a minus 115 or so, willing to take a shot on the Astros on the money line. I did somebody told it at 8.9, as I do think that Povich is actually going to be able to give you a good start at home, but I think the Brown is just better. So looking at the under and looking at the Astros on the money line, 9-11, 9-12 on the betting board. It is the LA Angels on the road facing off against the Toronto Blue Jays, as Chris Bassett has the hook, line, and sinker for the Jays, and Jake Konowitz is on the bump for the LA Angels. And for the Angels, they're between plus 160 to a plus 165, anywhere between minus 180 to a minus 182 is that number on the Jays. 8.5 is the total, the over is minus 120, and the under is even for Jake Konowitz and the LA Angels. I did set them as a pretty sizable underdog. I needed at least a plus 172 to be able to fire in here, and if you're looking to lay a run half with the Blue Jays, you're going to be finding that about a plus 115 or so, and for me to be able to lay a run half with the Blue Jays, I needed at least a plus 113, so here at a plus 115, it's pretty much my minimum buy point here, but it is a buy point with Jake Conowitz, it's just a situation where he doesn't feel ready for the big league level. Credit where it is due. He has picked up his first ever big league win, and the LA Angels actually are backing him up with a top 5 bullpen in terms of ERA. They have gotten rid of a lot of these cast-off old guys like that Adam Simber, Amir Garrett, guys like this making appearances. Now, you've got the likes of Hans Krause, Jose Quijada, Ben Joyce. These guys are supplying a sub-3.5 ERA, even Ronesy Contreras, who have been pretty rock solid, but for Jake Conowitz, it's been rough for him in his first 4 starts. 6.53 ERA, 6.45 fielding independent, getting 3 strikeouts per 9 innings. He quite literally has gotten 7 strikeouts in his 4 starts and has given up 4 home runs. That's pretty less than savory, to say the least. And for Chris Bassett, it has been quite less than savory for him here in the second half of the season, as well as Bassett was really getting it going towards like the beginning of the month of May through late June, and things have really toilet bowled on him recently. 3+ runs surrendered in 4 of his last 5 starts, 4.34 ERA compared to a 4.13 fielding independent. He's not really giving up too much of the deep ball. He's only allowed 1 home run per 9 innings. He's getting about 8.6, 8.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he has given up the 3.5 walks per 9 innings, and that has been a massive issue for him. And for Chris Bassett, ever since he's gotten to Toronto, it's been up and down in terms of his home and road splits, and this year a 4.67 home ERA compared to a 3.90 ERA on the road. But fortunately for him, you've got Vlad Guerrero Jr. has really been able to pick it up for this unit. He's been able to hit well above a 3.15. He's up to right around about 25 home runs. He has been amazing for the Blue Jays. Question is, who else is going to be able to supply for this offense? You've got Spencer Horwitz, who's starting to be able to bang out the deep ball. He's up to a 360 on base, 8 home runs, about 220 plate appearances. You've got Dalton Varsho, George Springer with 15+ home runs apiece, but these 2 guys, along Joey Looper Fido, are both hitting a 225 or lower. You've gotten absolutely nothing out of Addison Barger as well. I actually do like the young guy in Will Wagner that is of descendant of Billy Wagner. And then on the flip side for the LA Angels, you have a quartet of guys that have been able to give you at least 16 home runs this season. Joedel, Taylor Ward, Zach Neto, Logan O'Hoppe, with O'Hoppe and Neto both being able to hit between about a 255 to a 265. Joedel hitting a good hearty 207 with a 280 on base. And now they're throwing out their younger guys like Nico Kavidas, who's now getting at bats. You've gotten absolutely nothing out of Anthony Rendon. Literally entered into yesterday with 0 home runs and a 227 batting average. I mean, that's the textbook definition of useless, but you do have an LA Angels bullpen that's far better than that of the Toronto Blue Jays. Blue Jays are a bottom 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA this season, though Chad Green has been very rock solid for the team. He's been able to supply the team with a sub-2 ERA. Tommy Nansen, a small sample size, hasn't been too bad either, but the likes of Ryan Burr, who was the opener yesterday, Zach Pop, Eric Swanson, guys like this, posting up north of a 5 ERA. That's quite a bit of an issue, but I have absolutely no faith here in Conowitz whatsoever. So, circumstance where I had a plus 115 or better, I'm going to be willing to take the Jays on the run line. And in terms of total, I set mine at a 9.2, so I do like the over, and I do like the run line of the Jays. 9-13, 9-14 on the betting board. The Walker Texas Rangers at the red face-off against the Cleveland Guardians. Tanner Bybee is on the bump for Cleveland, and Nathan Eovaldi is on the bump for Texas. Texas is back to being an underdog between plus 120 to a plus 126, minus 134 to a minus 142. That number on Cleveland, and 7.5 is the total. Over and under, both at minus 110. And for Cleveland, I did set them at a minus 153. I'm going to be willing to back them. For Nathan Eovaldi, he does have some big-time home and road splits, and for Eovaldi, he was dealing with some command issues towards the early part of the summertime. He has really been able to iron those out, so that is an encouraging sign if you're looking at the Texas Rangers here. But for Nathan Eovaldi, he is giving up darn near about 1.3 to 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, 3.76 ERA, feeling independent very much in line with that, even though he's only given up about 2 walks per 9 innings, but 3.16 home ERA, 4.87 ERA on the road. This despite the fact that on the road he's only given up about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings, and it's closer to 1.3 home runs per 9 innings when he is at home. So I do find that to be a little bit fascinating, but for Eovaldi, last few starts just have not been great. Last 5 starts, he has given up 5 home runs, 17 runs, 16 of which have been earned, so he is in a little bit less than tremendous form. And for Tanner Bybee, he's actually been a bit better on the road than he has been at home. 3.99 home ERA, 2.81 ERA on the road, but I really like the way that Tanner Bybee has been able to roll in general. He's been able to do a nice job in terms of his strikeout stuff. He's going to give out a few walks, but it's not like the walks are overly concerning or anything like that. About 10 strikeouts in that neighborhood, about 2.3 walks per 9 innings, giving up a home run per 9 innings, 3.33 ERA, 3.40 fielding dependent, and as we know, the Cleveland Guardians, they back him up with what has been by far the number 1 bullpen ERA in the big leagues. They're about half a point clear of any other team in the big leagues in terms of top ERA. You have to feel like some of these guys might be starting to wear down a little bit, but Emmanuel Clase just continues to be immaculate with a sub-0.65 ERA this season. And then you've got the likes of Tim Aaron, Kate Smith, Eli Morgan, Hunter Gaddis. I'll give you a sub-250 ERA. Sam Entages, when he's been out there, has been pretty rock solid. I mean, Scott Barlow with his 4 ERA is like the biggest albatross in this bullpen at this point. And if he were on the Texas Rangers, he'd be average to above average for them, as Kirby Yates has been amazing. He's been able to give the team like a $1.25 ERA. But that said, it's been a roll of the dice in terms of everyone else. Gerson Garabito has actually been halfway decent. Sub-3 ERA out of him. David Arpison hovering right around about a 3 himself. But then you've had Jose Leclerc be absolutely awful this year. He's posting up like a nice hearty 4.70 ERA, just has been ineffective. Andrew Chafin, north of 5 ERA since they picked him up, has been good. We have Grant Anderson out there. He's a human white flag. He's absolutely awful. So you've got a lot of issues when it comes to this bullpen. And for the Texas Rangers, you've had all sorts of issues when it comes to this lineup as well, as Corey Seager's had to carry the mail for the team. 28 home runs, north of a 350 on base. But Josh Smith over the last 45 or so days, he's hitting below a 240. Wyatt Langford, he's come up with a few game-winning hits recently, and he's been able to pick it up a tab, but 313 on base, 7 home runs. You expected more there. You've had Marcus Semien be able to supply 18 home runs. He's giving you an on-base percentage that's a little bit above a 315. Last 30 days, about a 315 on base. He's been relatively pedestrian there. And Adolis Garcia, after he had like a 65-game stretch where he was hitting about a $185, he's looked a little bit better here in the last 10 or so days, so a little bit of credit where it is due. But guys at the bottom of the fold like Leody Taveras, Jonah Heim, Garcia, I mentioned before, Travis Jankowski hitting at 231 or lower with not a lot of on-base have really killed the team. And for the Cleveland Guardians, the lineup in general has been up and down, with Stephen Kwan over the last 45 days hitting below at 230. That is a big issue. But Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor combined 59 home runs. These two guys have combined 190 RBI, both giving you about a 318 to a 332 in terms of on-base percentage. So I have a few guys like Bo Naylor, Brian Rocchio, Tyler Freeman, Gabriel Urias when he's been out there, as I know that he's spent some time at the minor league level. I think at 222 or lower, that's an issue. And Austin Hedges, whatever he's at the catcher spot, that's a big giant issue. But John Kenzie Noel, in a small sample size, getting a home run every about 10.5 or so at bats, 320 on base. Do like what I'm seeing there. David Fry has been able to give you about a 365 on base. So overall, I do think that the Guardians have enough to be able to get the job done here, especially with the way that bullpen is rolling and the way that Nathan Eovaldi has pitched on the road. So circumstance where I'm going to be in on the over. I set my total at 7.9 and going to be willing to take the Guardians up to a minus 152 on the money line. 9:15, 9:16 on the betting board. The Detroit Tigers are on the road. They're facing off against the Chicago White Sox. Chris Flexen is on the bump for the White Sox, and Guillermo Montero is on the bump for Detroit. Detroit is a minus 157 to a minus 166 favorite. Plus 140 to plus 145, that number on the Southsiders. 8.5 is the total. Over is minus 120. The unders even if you're looking to lay a run half with Detroit. Even money on that. Minus 120 to get a run half with the White Sox. And I set my run line price at a minus 128 on the Tigers. I am going to be willing to lay that run line, even though Kadir Montero has been absolutely terrible thus far this season. The Chicago White Sox somehow, some way are even worse. They put up a 4 spot in the 9th inning against the Giants, much to my chagrin, about 48 or so hours ago. Don't think that lightning is going to strike twice. With Montero, 428 ERA, 524 fielding to pen, giving up darn near 2 home runs per 9 innings, but does feel like he's starting to find himself a little bit more. 0 or 1 runs allowed in 2 out of his last 3 starts, including 5 scoreless against the New York Yankees. And for Chris Flexen, you want to talk about the biggest fade in all of baseball. Every time he steps onto the bump, the Chicago White Sox lose. I mean, it is incredible. These are Homer Bush-like numbers from way back in the day. He has stepped on the bump 26 times this year, and the White Sox are 2-24 in any game that he pitches in this year. Just an absolute remarkable feat, and I believe that they have lost all but 2 of these games by multiple runs. Just blows the mind. And there's really no reason to think that it's going to be getting a whole heck of a lot better, as Flexen is posting up north of a 5 ERA, giving up 3+ walks per 9 innings, not really getting a lot of strikeouts. Now, he is going up against a Detroit Tigers team that has had their issues being able to hit the deep ball all season long. This team is towards the bottom of the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat and a per-game basis, but now you've got Riley Green back, who's been able to give you about a 350 or so on base. He's been able to slug out 17 home runs. Cole Keith, along with Matt Vierling, both of these guys are at double-figure amount of homers and hitting in that neighborhood about a 250 or so. It's been up and down in terms of some of these younger guys. They had a DFA, Gio Rochelle, and you still have quite a few guys. They're hitting at a 215, we're going to call it, or lower. You've got guys like a Zach McKinstry, Jace Young, Jason Rogers, Javi Baez, guys like this, but been able to get a little bit more out of some of these young guys as well. Getting back Gary Carpenter has hit 3 home runs in 2 weeks back has been pretty massive. They've had Andy Ibanez come up to the big league level and has been relatively solid as well. And that's more than what you're able to say for the Chicago White Sox, who are averaging still only about 3.1 runs per contest, by far dead last in the big leagues. Andrew Vaughn, along with Luis Robert and Benintendi, all with 13 to 14 home runs this season. But really, other than Vaughn, both of these guys are hitting a 215 or lower that aren't named Vaughn. And in terms of just being able to move the line, being able to get on base, you don't have anyone that is going to be available for this game that has north of 75 at-bats this season, that has north of a 313 on base, as Gavin Sheets, Nicky Lopez, both hitting in that neighborhood about a 240, and then you pair that up with a bullpen that has been absolutely awful thus far this season, second worst in terms of ERA. Gus Varland has been able to give you a little bit of something, and now they pick up Añel de los Santos to see if you're able to get anything there, but John Brebbia continues to post up north of a 5 ERA. Justin Anderson more around about a 4.28, and he's one of their more trustworthy guys. And for the Detroit Tigers, the bullpen has honestly been relatively solid for them since July 1st, despite all of the use. It's been a top 10 team in terms of bullpen ERA. The likes of Tyler Holton, Will Vest being able to supply a sub 350 ERA. Brendan Hennefy has been rock solid. They're going to be looking at Sean Gunther a little bit now moving forward. He's been able to give a sub 4 ERA in his small sample size. Do think that overall Detroit Tigers should be able to take it to a White Sox team that continues to be sad and pathetic. So I'm going to be taking a look at the run line here of Detroit, and did set my total at 9.2, so I'm also in on the over. 917, 918 on the betting board. The Colorado Rockies are on the road facing up against the New York Yankees, as you got Carlos Rodon on the bum for the Yankees, and Kyle Freeland goes for Colorado. Colorado does find themselves as plus 235 to plus 247 underdogs, minus 280 to minus 290. That number on the Yankees money line, if you're looking to lay a run after, that's going to be more in the pocket, about minus 130 to minus 135, and total is 8.5 for this game. Over and under, both at minus 110. Did set my total at 9.2. I'm looking at the over, even though the Rockies have seen a drop-off in terms of their batting average on the road compared to at home by about 45 or so points. You've got a quartet of guys that have been able to slug out at least 16 home runs at all, but one of those guys has been able to hit at least 10 home runs on the road, as you've got this out of Ezekiel Tovar, Ryan McMahon, Michael Tuglia, and Brenton Doyle. Now, Doyle sees a sharp drop in terms of his batting average when he's on the road hitting less than a 235 compared to north of a 300 at home, and you'll find that with a few guys. Brendan Rodgers, prime example of this. He's hitting darn near 100 points lower when he's on the road rather than at home. 333 home batting average compared to a 228 on the road. It's been a rough season just in terms of staying healthy for some of these guys as well. We have seen Jake Cave be in and out of the fold, and being out has been hurting this team a little bit. And then Chris Bryant, whenever he's in there, he's pretty useless, and when he's not in there, well, he's injured once again. So, I mean, it's just been a big, giant issue there in terms of the outfield, but it does feel like they're starting to be able to get a little bit more consistency, and the bullpen, which is by far dead last in the big leagues in terms of ERA, hey, now you've got at least more than one guy with a sub-5 ERA. Victor Vodnik has been that top guy all season long. Now you've been able to have Anel Shavili be able to give you a little bit more as well. They're dealing with a little bit of an injury with Vodnik, so I have to think that Noah Davis, who's been utilized as a starter a little bit throughout his career as well, he might be seeing a little bit more burn as well. And then for the New York Yankees, this has been more of a league average bullpen in terms of ERA this season. Do like some of the upside with the likes of a Jake Cousins throwing there as well, Tommy Kahnle being able to supply a sub-3 ERA, and I recognize that he's blown a lot of saves, but Clay Holmes has still been able to post up a sub-3 ERA. He, in my opinion, has been pretty rock solid, but what has not been rock solid is the amount of hard contact that Carlos Rodon has given up. 1.5 home runs given up per 9 innings this year, posting up an ERA and fielding dependent that's in that neighborhood about a 4.25 to a 4.35. The walks aren't necessarily too bad, and the swing and miss stuff is coming back to him. He's been able to give the team about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, but you do look at Kyle Freeland since coming off the injured list, and he's given up 3 earned runs or fewer in all but 2 of his starts, and that's pitching at Coors Field. And Coors Field, as we know, it's a very difficult place to be able to pitch at. He actually has a sub-4 ERA when he is at home. This balloons up to north of an 8 ERA when he is on the road, but a lot of that was happening early on during the season, and he was just as unlucky as it gets prior to coming off the injured list, and we're going to call it about late June or so in the starts that he's made ever since then. He's made 10 in total. It has been just a completely different pitcher in general. Still not getting a lot of swings and misses. He's still hovering right in that neighborhood about a 7 to a 7.5 strikeouts per 9 inning rate. His walks, though, he's been able to improve upon that. He's giving up fewer than 3 walks per 9 innings. Now, the big thing for him, he's going to need to make sure that he keeps the ball in the yard. Overall this season, give it up in that neighborhood about 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, and that's a face-off against Juan Soto along with Aaron Judge. Judge, 48 home runs. I mean, he could get to 61 plus once again this year. 465 on base, 430 on base for Juan Soto, but what does everyone else do? Alex Verdugo is sitting at 227. I don't think that he's got a home run here in the second half of the season. Anthony Volpe, Oswaldo Cabrera, Giancarlo Stanton, Jose Trevino, these are guys hitting between about a 242, 250, and Stanton has been rough since coming off the injury list, but was able to go deep yesterday. But you take a look at this team as a whole with the Yankees, having these guys like Trent Grisham, DJ Turn It Up, LeMahieu, Ben Rice, hitting below the Bedos line of 200 towards the bottom of the lineup, and it is very much a top-heavy team with Chad Schislam being out, and for Kyle Freeland posting up a 397 ERA and a 392 fielding independent since coming off the injury list. I just feel like this number has gone up a little bit too far. I'm going to be willing to take the Mondo plus number here with the Rockies on the money line. I need at least a plus 244 to be able to do so, and so my total at 9.2 is also in on the over. 919, 920 on the betting board. The Boston Red Sox play the Seahawks and the Diamondbacks. Ryan Nelson goes for the Saints, and Brian Bayo goes for Boston. Boston is a favorite of between minus 125 to a minus 135, between plus 114 to a plus 118 is that number on Arizona. 9.5 is the total. The over is between minus 105 to a minus 115, and same goes for the under. And with the Red Sox, I did set them right in that neighborhood about a minus 125 myself. As a matter of fact, minus 126. So at a minus 125 or less, I'm willing to fire in on their money line for Brian Bayo. It's been a rough season for him thus far, posting up north of a 4.5 ERA. He's been giving up a lot of the long ball all season long, giving up nearly 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, but has looked quite a bit better recently. As for Brian Bayo, he has been more rough at home rather than on the road. 4.20 home ERA compared to a 4.39 ERA on the road, but in his 3 starts here in the month of August has given up a combined 4 runs, and has now given up 300 runs or fewer in all but one of his starts since the beginning of the month of July. Now, we'll say this, in the month of July, he did give up 3+ runs in all but 2 of them as well, so you're able to take a look at that one of 2 ways, but he's now been consistently going 5 to 6 innings, giving up 3 runs, which is better than what he was doing towards the, shall we say, beginning/middle part of the season. And for Ryan Nelson, it's been an up and down season for him, and he's been pitching better on the road rather than at home the last 2 seasons. Last 2 seasons, his ERA is more than 2 points lower on the road rather than at home. He has given up about 1.3 home runs per 9 innings when he is on the road, and the overall strikeout numbers for the year aren't necessarily flashy. He's getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but if you look at what he's been able to do recently, that swing and miss stuff is way up. In 3 months here in the month of August, 22 strikeouts in 18 1/3 innings, and for that matter, he has been able to give the team at least 6 strikeouts in all but 1 out of his last 6 starts, 9+ strikeouts in 3 out of these last 6 starts. And for the Diamondbacks, the bullpen ERA has actually been quite solid ever since the beginning of the month of July. They have a sub-345 bullpen ERA in this time span. That's in the top 3 in the National League, as they've been able to have some valuable pickups in A.J. Puckdale and Floro be able to supply a sub-3.5 ERA. Kevin Ginkel is down to about a 2.75 ERA. Paul Sewald has been a bit of a roll of the dice all season long, but guys like Ryan Thompson, Justin Martinez have been able to do a nice job. And for the Red Sox, entering into the back half of their series with the Astros, they were dead last in terms of bullpen ERA since the beginning of the month of July, with north of a 6 bullpen ERA. They are getting Greg Weiser back, which should be able to help. Justin Slayton being on the injured list has been hurting them quite a bit. And Kenley Jansen, Zach Kelly, these guys are giving you a sub-3 ERA. Past that, you don't have a lot of reliability, but what you know is reliable is the bats for the Boston Red Sox, who are right now towards the top of the American League in terms of runs per game post-All-Star break. Tyler O'Neill, along with Rafael Devers, a combined 49 home runs, both give you north of a 350 on base, and among the 10 players that are pretty much seeing consistent at-bats for the Red Sox at this point, all but one of them, and Ceddanne Rafaela, give you at least a 311 on base. And with Rafaela, it's not like he's hitting badly. He's hitting at 264 with 13 home runs. Jarren Duran, 32 stolen bases along David Hamilton. For Duran, he's been able to slug out 17 home runs this season, so he's been able to do a nice job there, hitting about a 295, as you've got him, Masataka Yoshida, Connor Wong, Rob Revsider, all these more ancillary guys hitting above 280. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, they are dealing with some injuries with Ketel Marte along Christian Walker, their top 2 home run hitters, currently being out of the lineup, but still have a lot of guys who are able to produce find a way on base. Jake McCarthy is hitting above 300 in a small sample size. Adrian Del Castro, who's been thrusted into the catcher spot, he's been hitting about a 360 with a little bit of pop. 3 home runs and 36 at-bats. So love what I've been seeing there. Jock Peterson, 20 bombs, and he is up to north of a 400 base, while some of these other ancillary pieces, like you've had Randall Grichuk, Geraldo Perdomo, Kevin Newman all step up at least a 265 for this team. So I do think that you're going to be able to get plenty of offense in this game. Did set my total at 10.1, even at a 10. I'd be looking at the over for the Red Sox. I set them at a minus 125 on the money line. If you're looking at the run line, you're able to find that more in that neighborhood, about a plus 150 or so. Personally, I'm going to be looking at a minus 125 or better on this Red Sox money line and looking at the over. 921, 922 on the betting board. The St. Louis Cardinals are on the road facing off against the Minnesota Twins. David Fessa goes for the Twins. Andre 3000 Palante is on the bump for St. Louis. 8.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110. With the Cardinals, you're going to be getting them between plus 118 to a plus 127, between minus 134 to a minus 142. That number on Minnesota, and I'm going to be willing to lay with Twins. I set them as a favorite of a minus 155. Big key for Fessa is being able to keep the walks down, as he has really good swing and miss stuff. We saw this at the minor league level, and now at the big league level, he's getting north of 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Had a few rough starts to begin his MLB career and has really been able to calm down recently. Has given up 2 home runs or fewer in each out of his last 5 starts. Now, the bugaboo that you do have with this is that he has never filled more than 5 innings. So you're going to be looking at a lot of the bullpen usage of the Minnesota Twins, which has been up and down. It's been a pretty league average bullpen all season long, with having Griffin Jackson, Jorge Alcala be able to give you sub-3 ERA. Yohan Duran doesn't necessarily have the world's greatest ERA, but he's been able to lock it down towards the back half of games as well. You've got Ronnie Enriquez, who has come up and able to give you about a 386 ERA, as he and Cole Sands can fill some innings, and Sands has been able to improve in that bullpen as well. And then you do have a Cardinals bullpen that is in the top 10 in the big leagues in terms of their ERA. Had a lot of usage in that series against Milwaukee Brewers, but the likes of Andrew Kittredge, Ryan Fernandez, Jojo Romero, Ryan Elsley, these guys being able to supply sub-3.5 ERA of Lon John King. They've been able to do a nice job on that front. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, it's just all about finding offense. This team has been in the bottom 4 in the National League in terms of runs per game ever since the All-Star break, but you do have a pair of guys, Paul Goldschmidt, Alec Burleson, combining for 40 home runs this season. For Goldschmidt, still just a 287 on base. You expect more there. Nolan Gorman does have 19 home runs, but he's very much been relegated out of this lineup. Just 44 at-bats over the last 30 days, hitting a $182 in that time span, and his batting average has been an issue all season long. But do have Wilson Contreras, who's done a nice job moving the line, giving you about a 375 or so in terms of his on base. Burleson, Mason Wynn, Nolan Arenado, in between about a 270 to 280 as well. So like what I'm seeing there, but I do think that the Twins, even with the injuries that they've got, as they're currently dealing with Byron Buxton, along Carlos Correa being out, I still think that they've got enough to be able to get it done with this lineup, as they've got Ryan Jeffers is up to 20 home runs this season, and Carlos Santana is up to 18. Both of these guys hovering in that pocket of about a 312 to a 330 on base, but Royce Lewis is the key. When Royce Lewis is out there, it just feels like this offense is different. He's got 5 home runs in his last 80 or so at-bats. Been struggling a little bit over the last 30 days. I think about a 240, but overall for the campaign, north of a 330 on base. And this guy, just in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, he's getting a home run every about 11.5 or so at-bats. He has been an absolute marvel. You've been able to have Matt Wallner give you 8 home runs at about 120 at-bats. He's supplying a 389 on base as well. So I do think that the Minnesota Twins find a way to be able to get to Andre 3000 Palante, who's got a 407 ERA, fielding independent. That's very much in line with that, as Palante, he's given out a lot of walks, 3.5 walks per 9 innings, while pitching to quite a bit of contact. He's only getting about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. One thing that he's done a great job of is giving up 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, a 3.16 road ERA, with giving up 3 home runs in 37 innings on the road, but gives up a lot of walks, doesn't necessarily get a lot of strikeouts. Do think that the balls in play are going to start to hurt him even further, and I do think that it starts here. So I'm looking at the Twins on the money line, set them at a minus 155, and did make my total in an 8.7, so at the 8.5, do like the over. 923, 924 on the betting board. The Kansas City Royals, Loyal Philadelphia Phillies. Devin Walker is on the bump for the Phils, and Michael Wacha, and if he has a bad performance, he turns into the dying Pac-Man voice. Michael Wacha, 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 Wacha. He goes for the Kansas City Royals, and the Royals are between minus 135 to minus 140 favorites, between plus 114 to a plus 126. That number on Philadelphia. 9 is the total. Over is between minus 115 to a minus 120. The under is between even and minus 105. Made my total 9.6. I'm going to be staring at the over for the Philadelphia Phillies. The last time they won a Taijuan Walker start, they're 0-7 in its last 7. You have to go all the way back to, I believe, May 22nd when they played against the Texas Rangers. 5.73 home ERA, 5.63 ERA on the road. He is giving up north of 1.9 home runs per 9 innings. He's giving up darn near 4 walks per 9 innings. He's getting in that neighborhood about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's really not doing anything well. And for Michael Wacha, he's just been as steady as they come. 3.33 ERA. Feeling a pen that's very much on point with this, as he's given up a home run per 9 innings, about 2.5 walks per 9 innings. Still not an amazing swing and miss pitcher. He's only getting about 7 to 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but I mean, he's rock solid at home. 3.14 home ERA, giving up less than a home run per 9 innings out there in a hitter's haven in Kansas City. That's pretty darn solid. And for the Royals, it's just all about what you're able to get around your main two masters in Salvador Perez, Bobby Witt Jr. Perez, 22 home runs, 333 on base. Bobby Witt Jr. hitting north of a 400 since the 4th of July, 25 home runs, hitting at 352 this season, as he and Miguel Garcia have also combined for 55 stolen bases, as got the likes of Garcia, Kyle Isbell, Hunter Renfroe, Garrett Hampson. These guys hitting between about a 225 to a 240, actually closer to a 230 to a 240. So these guys have started to give you a little bit more of something. You need to have MJ Melendez continue to pick it up a little bit, as it's been a miserable season for him, hitting a 206, but does feel like the tide is starting to turn. 4 home runs in his last 60 at-bats, hitting about a 250. We've also had Freddie Fermin hit at 300 as well, so the Royals, which is a top-heavy lineup, feels like they're getting more contributions across the board. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, they've got quite a few struggling bats as well. Trey Turner, overall for the season, is hitting about a 300, but much of that is based on what he did earlier in the campaign, as he's got a 250 on base, 223 batting average with not a lot of power over the last 30 days. Nick Castellanos has made a win north of a 280 over the last, we're going to call it about 45 or so days, so he's been rock solid. But Bryce Harper just has been in this long funk for nearly 2 months, where he's hitting a $198 with 3 home runs over the last 30 days. It just has not been great. Kyle Schwarber continuing to give you 28 home runs, 375 on base. That's been pretty solid. And I mean, even the bottom of the fold, Yohan Rojas has been okay. Brandon Marsh is starting to go down the toilet bowl a little bit, but all in all, it's a Phillies team that it just feels like they're stuck in a malaise. And for the bullpen ERA of the Philadelphia Phillies, it's in the bottom 7 in the big leagues over the last 2 months. Jose Alvarado has been a disaster. You've got Orion Kerkering, Jeff Hoffman, Matt Strahm, who've all been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, but even they are starting to act up a little bit. Jose Ruiz is posting up an ERA that's hovering right around about 380 as well. Carlos Estevez, Tanner Banks, they both joined the team, and neither, I would say, has been awful, but neither has necessarily been amazing either, and you have to have my question marks as to what you're going to be able to get out of them moving forward. And for the Kansas City Royals, this team has been able to improve their bullpen with Lucas Erceg coming in. He's been able to give the team a sub-3.5 ERA. You've had Sammy Long be relatively solid out of this bullpen as well with a sub-3 ERA. Anel Zerpa has been all over the place this season. Will Smith, Chris Ryan as well, but do you think that the Royals should be able to get it done with Michael Wacha out there on the bump? I did set the Royals at a minus 146 on the money line, so seeing even as high as a minus 140 out there, I'm going to be willing to take the Royals on the money line and going to be taking a look at this sign over. 925, 926 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers are on the road facing off against the Oakland A's. JP Sears is on the bump for the A's. Aaron Civale is on the bump for the Brewers. Brewers between minus 125 to minus 130 favorites, plus 110 to a plus 117 is that number on Oakland with 7.5 the total. The over is between minus 110 to a minus 115. Under is between minus 105 to a minus 110. Saw a big giant under series between the A's and the Rays where there were 14 total runs in those 4 games of that series. Do you think that we get a little bit of an explosion here? Set my total at 8.3. I'm in on the over. Really not bullish on either Aaron Civale or JP Sears. A pair of guys that both have north of a 4.15 ERA. For Sears, overall a 4.15 ERA, and credit where credit is due. It's given up 1 run or fewer in 3 out of his last 4 starts, but what I find to be so concerning about Sears is that his home ERA is actually worse than his road ERA. 4.27 home ERA, 4.04 ERA on the road. Not as if he's given up the deep ball too much at home. He's given up 1 home run per 9 innings at home, more like 1.4 home runs per 9 innings when he is on the road, but does give up quite a bit of contact as he's only getting about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings and faces off against a Brewers team that they stranded quite a few men on base in that series. against the St. Louis Cardinals, much to the chagrin of myself, but still have a team that ranks in the top 3 in the big leagues in terms of their on-base percentage against righties, as just have so many guys that are able to move the line for this team. Andrew Marasario, Garrett Mitchell, Eric Haas, Sal Frelick, Willie Adames, all guys with at least a 324 on base. Then you've got William Contreras, 360 on base, 17 home runs. Willie Adames, Rhys Hoskins, a combined 42 home runs. These two guys, Jackson Chourio, has been one of the hottest hitters in all of baseball over the last 30 days. Last 30 days, he's hitting for nearly a 340 with 5 bombs, so love what I'm seeing there. Bryce Harang has been having his issues recently, but who else has been having their issues is the Oakland A's just being able to get on base. As their home runs on a per at-bat basis is one of the better marks that you're going to find in the big leagues. Brent Rooker, Shea Langoliers, a combined 51 home runs out of these two guys, and Rooker a 362 on base, and darn near 285. JJ Bleday is now up to 17 home runs. Zach Galoff is up to 15 home runs, but there's just a lot of guys in this lineup hitting at 225 or lower. I was mentioning it with Langoliers a little bit before. Tyler Nevin, Seth Brown, Galoff, Des Cameron. You just go down the list, and you're not getting a lot of average out of these guys. And we'll say for the Oakland A's, they continue to be a top 10 team in the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA. Grant Holman is a young guy that they're now going to be looking to because they've had a few injuries, but Mason Miller has been rock solid all season long in this bullpen. He and Danny Jimenez have been out for quite some time, but both of these guys giving you a sub 365 ERA. You've now been able to get some better innings as well out of TJ McFarland. JT Ginn is someone that I think has a bit of upside. And for the Brewers, this team has been number 1 in the National League in terms of bullpen ERA for the entirety of the season, as have quite a few guys that are supplying great numbers for this team, as they're still dealing with a few injuries with the likes of Enoli Paredes and company being out of the lineup as of right now, but been able to have Jared Koenig, Brian Hudson both be able to give you a sub 225 ERA. We're starting to see a little bit of issue for Trevor McGill, but overall for the season, McGill has been highly reliable for this team. He's been able to supply a sub 3.3 ERA, so like what I'm seeing there, Yo Piamps, Elvis Figueroa, they're both at a sub 350 as well. The big thing for Aaron Civale is that he just needs to go out there and execute his pitches a little bit better. 4.10 ERA ever since going to the Milwaukee Brewers overall for the season, a 4.78 ERA. Not as if he's done a terrible job in terms of getting swings and misses. About 8.6 to 8.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. The walks per 9 rate hovering right around about 3. What has really just killed him is the deep ball. He's given up north of 1.7 home runs per 9 innings on the road. This is our near 2 home runs per 9 innings, but pitching out there in Oakland, especially during the nighttime when the marine layer is going to be out, I do think that that's going to be a big edge for him, and I do think that that allows the Brewers to be able to get the job done here. I did set the Brewers at a minus 132 on the money line, so one to lay up to a minus 130 there, and at the 7.5, I'm going to be looking at the over. 927, 928 on the betting board. The Seattle Mariners play host to the San Francisco Giants. Hayden Birdsong is on the bump for the Giants. Luis Castillo is on the bump for Seattle. Seattle, a favorite of between minus 154 to a minus 162, plus 136 to a plus 145. That number on San Francisco. 7.5 is the total. The under is between minus 110 to a minus 120. The over is between minus 110 and even money. And I'm going to be willing to go in on the over. Set my total at 7.7 for Birdsong. He's got really nice swing and miss stuff, and if he can put it all together, he's got a lot of upside, as he's getting to about 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's also giving up north of 1.5 home runs and 4.7 walks per 9 innings. So it's been the best of times and it's been the worst of times for Hayden Birdsong. He's either going to go out there and dominate, or he's going to get dominated, as on the road and in his 5 road starts, he has given up 5 home runs and is posting up a 5.64 ERA. Now gets a pitch in one of the better pitchers ballparks in all of baseball, and that's something that Luis Castillo has taken full advantage of this season. 2.85 home ERA compared to a 4.35 ERA on the road. And for Castillo, it's not as if he's pitched horribly in my opinion. About 1.2 home runs given up per 9 innings. He's been able to keep the walks down to about 2.5 walks per 9 innings. Swing and miss stuff down a little bit for him, about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. The big thing for the Seattle Mariners is that they just can't strike out the way that they have been all season long. They lead the league in terms of strikeouts on a per at-bat and a per game basis, and in a day and age where the stolen base is making a comeback, you really don't have anyone other than Dylan Moore and Julio Rodriguez giving you too many stolen bases. Victor Robles to a little bit of a lesser extent as well as Victor Robles, Julio Rodriguez, The only two guys that have a qualifying amount of at-bats are hitting north of a 250 for this team all season long across all of their stops as they bring in Justin Turner. He's been hitting a $196 for the team, so feels like the curse of a whole bunch of guys that just aren't able to reach base is lingering to him, as you've had so many of these guys just hit below a 225 for this unit. Dylan Moore, Ori Polanco, Mitch Haniger, you just go down the list. Mitch Garver, but been able to get great power out of Cal Raleigh. He's been able to give you 27 home runs. Luke Raley, he's up to 15 home runs. Garver, Haniger, Ori Polanco, all at 12 bombs this far this season as well. And for the San Francisco Giants, the team does a significantly better job of hitting the deep ball on the road rather than at home because Oracle Park, their home ballpark, is also one of the best for pitchers in all baseball. Tyler Fitzgerald, 12 home runs ever since the All-Star break. He's hitting above a 300. He has been tremendous. Eloy Ramos, Matt Chapman, a combined 38 home runs this season, both giving between about a 335 to a 340 on baseball. We've seen some of these guys like Brett Wisely, Patrick Bailey, some of these young guys start to have some regression. Mike Yastrzemski hitting overall for the season about a 240, so he's been up and down with that regard, and hitting just a 200 when he's on the road, as the Giants actually score about the same amount of runs when they're on the road rather than at home. And for the Giants, this bullpen is a bit of a concern. They're in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of ERA, but they did send Camilo Duvall down to the minor league level. Taylor and Tyler Rogers have been able to supply a sub-3.5 ERA along with Ryan Walker, Landon Ropp, though, up to about a 5 ERA. We saw them give up 4 runs in the 9th inning against the Chicago White Sox a few days ago. That's a little bit less than savory, and for the Seattle Mariners, this has been a little bit of a, shall we say, tumultuous bullpen as well, but Colin Slater, Andres Munoz have been able to supply a sub-2 ERA, and Troy Taylor, in his small sample size, he's been able to give you a sub-250 ERA as well. They picked up JT Chugwa, he's give you a sub-250 ERA. Haven't been able to get a lot out of Yimi Garcia since coming over from the Blue Jays. A 6 ERA, Tyler Cicado, now it's north of a 4 ERA, so it's been an up and down bullpen all season long. I do think that the Mariners are able to get to Birdsong here, and I do think that the Giants going to be able to inflict a little bit of pain onto Luis Castillo as well, so I did set my total at 7.7. I like the over. And with the Seattle Mariners right now, if you're looking to lay a run half with them, you're going to be finding that at a plus 145. I was willing to take a plus 121 or higher. So looking at the Mariners run line and looking at the total over, and we wrap things up with 929, 930 on the betting board. The Tampa Bay Rays are on the road facing off against the LA Dodgers. Bobby Miller is on the bump for the Dodgers. Tyler Alexander goes for the Rays, and the Rays to find themselves between plus 162 to a plus 174 underdogs, minus 190 to minus 195. That number on the Dodgers, with 9 being the total. Unders minus 115. The over is at minus 105. Even though the Rays have been so less than savory with their offense, averaging about 3.3 runs per game since the beginning of the month of August, I'm going to be willing to take the over in this ordeal. I set my total at 9.1. Do note that even though Alexander is right now listed as the starter, the Rays oftentimes throw an opener from. As a matter of fact, in his 16 total appearances, pretty much all of these have been starts or bulk appearances. Only 6 have been true starts, and last time he started a game, you have to go all the way back to, I believe, May. So, I mean, it has been quite a while for him, but since coming off the injured list, he's been able to do a pretty rock-solid job for this team. 120 innings, he's given up 5 runs in this time span. He's been able to put together some nice bulk appearances here recently, and for Alexander, he's not going to fool you with a bunch of swing and miss stuff or anything like that. He's only getting about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and this season he has been giving up the deep ball quite a bit, but since he's come off the injured list, he's been able to reduce on that quite a bit. 3 home runs given up in 20 innings. That's still a little bit of a concern, though, going against a Dodgers unit that is now back at full force. For the longest of time, they had so many guys that they had utilized in like those 7 through 9 spots, like James Outman, along with Jason Hayward, Kike Hernandez. You just go down the list of these guys and get 220 or lower. They just, I believe, DFA Jason Hayward. Outman is probably back down to the minor league level, as we have not seen him in quite some time. Kevin Kiermaier, he's been completely useless as well, but now you've got these guys back, like a Max Muncy, who had 2 home runs in the team's previous series against the Seattle Mariners. You also get back Mookie Betts, who's been able to give you darn near 400 on base this season. Freddie Freeman has not hit a lot of home runs since the All-Star break. He and Will Smith have been stagnant with that regard, and Will Smith having a rough second half of the season, but as he's had a rough second half, Gavin Lux has been able to pick it up. For Gavin Lux now hitting above a 250, and over the last 3 days hitting darn near 350. Shohei Ohtani continues to be amazing. 380 on base, 39 home runs. And Teoscar Hernandez, post All-Star break, hitting in that neighborhood about a 275 with 7 home runs in that time span as well. And for the LA Dodgers, big thing is keeping the bullpen consistent. As Anthony Vanda, Alex Vesia, these guys have been overperforming this year, to say the least. They're giving you a sub 275 area, but Michael Kopech, ever since he has put on Dodger Blue as a sub 1 ERA. Joe Kelly is always a little bit of a roll of the dice in the bullpen, but Danny Hudson has been able to do a solid job. And for the Rays, a lot of credit where it is due. They've got the number one bullpen in the American League in terms of ERA since July 1st, a sub-285 bullpen ERA in that time span. So you've got a lot of guys firing all cylinders, but currently they're without Pete Fairbanks. You've had Drew Rasmussen go back into the bullpen. He, Garrett Clevenger, Colin Pouchet, Edwin Uceta, Manuel Rodriguez are all give you a sub-340 ERA. The big thing for the Tampa Bay Rays is finding a way to be able to tee off on a guy in Bobby Miller who just does not look like the same guy that he was a season ago. For Bobby Miller, he's dealt with some major injuries as they're really having to trot out there. He, along with Walker Buehler, even though I'm sure that they probably don't want to, but for Miller, an 8.02 ERA with a 6.67 fielding dependent, giving up 2.4 home runs and 5.1 walks per 9 innings. If the Rays can't get it going here, they're probably not going to be able to get it going against anyone. They have only got two guys on the roster with north of 10 home runs this season. Brandon Lau, Jose Siri, 16 home runs apiece, and those series hitting a $199 overall. He had 2 home runs in that series against the Oakland A's. A little bit of encouragement there. Yandy Diaz continued at 275. He's been able to give the team 10 home runs. Do have quite a few guys hitting below the Mendoza line of 200 as Christopher Morel, who has north of 10 home runs this season, but those all came with the Chicago Cubs. He, Taylor Walls, Johnny DeLuca, Alex Jackson, these guys hitting below the Mendoza line of a 200. They need a little bit more there. Dylan Carlson, though, ever since they picked him up from the Cardinals, 3 home runs in his 48 at-bats, hitting for about a 345 on base. That's a little bit encouraging, and I do think that the Rays find a way to be able to get some runs against the Dodgers, but at the same time, I do think that the Dodgers are going to be able to muscle up in this spot as well. If you're looking to lay a run half with the Dodgers, you're going to be finding that at even money. I was willing to take a minus 102 or better, so I'm going to be taking that shot on the Dodgers on the run line and the sign over, and that'll wrap things up for the Friday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. A big thanks to Jovan Alford, who does great work over at FTN Bets. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at GNN_41. Keep in mind the lawyers CM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to have this podcast 5.5-star review, and I'm coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, so I'm back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more, or visit tremfyaradio.com.